Our students, parents, and siblings sitting on lawn chairs, standing in a line going across the front of the school and winding down towards the parking lot. As I greeted students and parents, I noticed bags, pillows, ice chests, and pizza boxes. They had been there all night. They were lined up to sign up for child care. These families in the school of 760 students had lined up to get one of 125 places in the city of Albuquerque's before and after school child care program. This happens every year at Bernie Hughes and other schools because working families are desperate for affordable child care. We know that good supervision and quality programs can minimize children's behavior problems, dropping out, or substance abuse. Every dollar spent on these programs now saves money on treatment, incarceration, and crime later on in life. Our school is typical, as many across the city have waiting lists. You just heard the story of a grieving teacher. A quality child care program can make a difference for other children.
Good afternoon. I'm Father McLaren, a priest at St. Michael and All Angels Episcopal Church and a leader with Albuquerque Interfaith. I'm here to begin our conversation about fair treatment of our city transit workers. This should be a conversation about safety and efficiency, but instead it is a story about fear and mismanagement. For many transit workers in this city, fear is a constant companion. They labor under constant surveillance and worry about avoiding the arbitrary punishment and capricious disciplinary actions that have become part of daily life at the transit department. This fear is compromising the safety not only of drivers, but also of riders and of other residents of this city. A life of fear and poor treatment have led to high turnover rates of city transit workers, which means less experienced drivers. And that, of course, opens all of us up to greater risk and possible disasters. Albuquerque Interfaith became involved with AFSCME 624 and the transit workers of our city 2 years ago through the story of Josephine Felder, a driver who was fired for supporting the new union. Ms. Felder lost her job, couldn't find another, and her family eventually lost their health care coverage. After over a year of fighting the city of Albuquerque, the city settled her claim for the full amount of her lost wages. Her story opened our eyes to the transit workers' struggle for dignity and justice, and the realization that their struggle was our struggle. As we have fought together for fair treatment of transit workers, we've learned that the transit issue is not just about drivers. It is also about providing good and adequate transit service to the riders who depend on the bus transportation for their livelihoods and their very survival. As we've struggled together, we've learned how difficult it is for people who depend on the bus to get to work, if they happen to work or get off later than 9 p.m., or have to work weekends in the city. We've learned how difficult it is for students to get to alternative schools in the South Valley because the routes there are so sparse. We've learned how as drivers are treated unjustly and riders served inadequately, all of us suffer. It is time for a change.
Schuh, a steward at transit with local 624 of AFSCME, a member of St. Mark's on the Mesa Episcopal Church, and a leader with Albuquerque Interfaith. I'm a bus driver. I've driven without a serious accident for 15 years. I make $12.86 a gallon. That's $5 less than if I were driving a trash truck for the city instead of a bus carrying people. That's why I joined the struggle to get a real union. With the support of ABQ Interfaith, Albuquerque Interfaith, we succeeded. Now that AFSCME is now the union for transit. With the support we know we can get further. But in response to our being successful in getting the transit union that works, transit management has replaced experienced drivers and managers with officers from the old union. Those of us who worked to organize for AFSCME have faced retaliation. I was warned that I might come across as too aggressive, so I'm talking a little less aggressive. So I apologize. If you're having a hard time hearing me, I'll talk loud. We were getting retaliation abuse, and we stumped up disciplinary proceedings. I've been subject to 3 different investigations since October, meaning they record and watch every move I make on the bus. And I'm only one of many drivers. They've never charged me with a serious infraction, though they did warn me not to criticize the way they're using the cameras on the buses. I've seen drivers disciplined for waving at a supervisor, for driving 6 miles per hour in a 5-mile-an-hour area, and made to clean buses for trying to help their fellow drivers. Our chief steward and a former bus driver, Paul Frugin, who was also a very effective organizer for AFSCME, was transferred against his will and is now cleaning toilets at the airport on the graveyard shift. Instead of providing effective training for good drivers that'll make them better, transit management has created a game of gotcha, where they use discipline to retaliate, to attempt to intimidate, and to abuse good people. Drivers should be accountable for what we do wrong. The city and elected officials should be accountable if they don't foster fair, just, and dignified treatment of good workers.
Albuquerque, a union steward of AFSCME 624, as well as a leader for Albuquerque Interfaith. As a steward, I work to ensure a fair and just disciplinary process. I see the source of false, arbitrary, and capricious proceedings that the transit management brings. Transit makes up about 5% of all city employees, but accounts for over 70% of all disciplinary hearings. Management-imposed disciplines are regularly overturned, reversed, and adjusted, but the damage to people's lives in the meantime is tremendous. One driver, a veteran of many years, is facing the loss of his home because of a suspension for accusations that will likely be overturned. The disciplinary process is so bad that a neutral hearing officer warned of a pattern of selective enforcement and deficient management practices. It is no wonder that turnover at transit is 25% annually. Drivers are hired, trained, and driven away. Drivers and their families suffer, but so too does the public. Transit workers want a bus system that works and that best serves the people of Albuquerque.